Morning, gore, evening, grace, spelling, and such good to have everybody back along with us here with our Temperance Awakening. And I look forward to giving this alcohol lecture about alcohol and risk-taking. Risk-taking associated with alcohol, also kind of mention a couple of other things that, kind of go along with alcohol as we start to wind down here. Not a whole lot of lectures left for this series. But looking here at risk-taking by definition being behaviors that increase the probability of an unwanted event or potential loss. Like elderly people know that they might face health issues that are a part of the normal aging process. Young people, in contrast, they expect to enjoy good health, and most of them do. But unfortunately, some of these young people, they make behavior choices that put their health at risk. And the major cause of death and chronic illness, chronic being, the term, being a long-term, the word for long-term, illness among young people is risky behavior such as substance abuse, unsafe sex, and violence. And this is why, so many educators try to focus on teenagers when dealing, with the risk-taking, why so much of what we do, with all of Temperance Awakening, like with alcohol, tobacco, and pornography, has more of a focus on young people, like people like 12 to, like around 25 years old, that's most people that we deal with. And in the 21st century, every American 15-year-old can expect to live about another 65 years at least. And most of those years, should be healthy and productive, but you never know what dangers are beyond your control will come tomorrow. We should know that behavior choices that are within our control can make a big difference in our chances of living a long and healthy life. That's why it's so best to just abstain from alcohol and, these things that, are just bad for our health and life. And while young people like to experiment, or push the envelope, as they say, every now and then, risky habits formed in the teenage years can later be difficult to break. It's like alcoholism, tobacco addiction, pornography addiction. The right choices now might make your future healthier, and most likely they're going to make them more successful and more fulfilling. And alcohol abuse is on every list of major risk-taking behavior. Drinking alcohol and combining that with drinking and driving or, sexual behaviors are near the top of every risk-taking list. And the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, that's headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, often gets headlines for its role in monitoring and controlling sudden epidemics and new viruses. But this federally funded institution also has responsibilities for preventing chronic disease through its Center for Chronic Disease Prevention. And concerned about risk-taking among young people, the center set up the Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System, which is known as YRBSS for short, in 1990. By surveillance, they weren't talking about spy satellites or telephone bugs, but they have run repeated surveys both nationwide and local, to ascertain how the country's teenagers were shaping up in terms of the following list of 6 major risk behaviors, things that we mentioned: tobacco use, unhealthy dietary behaviors, inadequate physical activity, and alcohol and other drug use, as well as sexual behaviors that contribute to unintended pregnancy and STDs such as HIV infection. And then the 6th one, behaviors that contribute to unintentional injuries and violence. And these behaviors, the center said, were major contributions among teenagers to the leading causes of death, disability, and social problems, including heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and violent deaths. Furthermore, the reports show that the behaviors were often established during childhood and early adolescence. The center hoped that the surveys would uncover trends in young people's behavior, show the interconnections between different types of risk, highlight areas where education could improve behaviors, and monitor any improvements that education might bring. The YRBSS has conducted national, state, and local surveys of 9th to 12th grade youngsters every 2 years since 1991. The program also runs special surveys of college students, high-risk kids in alternative high schools, and surveys of the entire population of 12 to 20-year-olds. A number of promising state and local health education programs have grown out of these surveys. The results of the various YRBSS surveys are available online for anyone's viewing. And now I'm going to be looking at the consequences with these risk behaviors. When it finished analyzing the 2001 survey results, the YRBSS published a brief fact sheet that showed the connection between risk-taking behavior among high school seniors and the leading causes of death for young people, as reported separately by the National Center of Health Statistics. For people between the ages of 10 and 24 years old, the leading causes of death in 1999 were motor vehicle crashes at 31%, homicide at 15%, suicide at 12%, other injuries at 12%, HIV infection at 1%, and all other causes were 19%. About 70% of all these tragically premature deaths were the results of injuries and violence, and alcohol was a major contributor to many of these deaths. In the 2001 survey, 30% of high school seniors reported episodic heavy drinking during the past month. That's having at least 5 drinks at a clip on at least 5 occasions. Also, 31% of seniors rode in a car with a drinking driver, 13% drove a car after drinking, and 4.9% had drunk alcohol on school property. A total of 33% were in physical fights, which are often alcohol-related. The survey also tried to pin down the age of initiation of risk behavior. So in other words, how young are kids when these risky behaviors first begin? With alcohol, 29% of kids had their first drink at 12 years old or younger, and that's not just a few sips either. Their first real, like, whole drink, whole beer, or like whole glass of, liquor. At only 12 years old or younger, so, extremely young, getting younger and younger whenever people first start experimenting. So as for combining alcohol and sex, more than 1 out of 4 sexually active students had used alcohol or drugs the last time they had sex. Much evidence shows that people who drink when they have sex tend to be careless about protecting themselves and their partner from unwanted pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases. Nevertheless, though, optimists believe that they have plenty of good news to focus on in the 2001 survey. Most of the risk behaviors have been declining among high school students since 1991. So, that's, namely a big part of that is because of, like, the thing the CDC has been doing, like with alcohol prevention, with tobacco prevention, like with the campaign for tobacco-free kids and things of that nature. The trend has been uneven, but the overall figures are down. The exceptions are marijuana and cocaine use, which unfortunately have increased. For alcohol, the most significant change between 1991 and 2001 was a decline in the percentage of kids who rode with a driver who had been drinking. The incidence went from 39.9% to 30.7%. The data is different for the older group, but for the older age groups, adults 25 years and older. The leading causes of death for them were cardiovascular disease, which was at 41%, cardiovascular being heart and blood vessel diseases, cancer at 24%, pulmonary lung disease at 4%, diabetes at 3%, and then all other things at 28%. Alcohol can be involved indirectly in some of these diseases, but the other risk factors have a more direct effect. Of course, tobacco, that being the biggest one there, like tobacco use is still the leading cause of preventable death in the United States. Then also an unhealthy diet, that's also up there, too much sugar, too much fat, and also inadequate physical activity. They contribute to the early death among adults. America's high school seniors show early signs of the unhealthy patterns that harm adults. In the 2001 survey, 28% of high school seniors had smoked cigarettes in the past month. 79% were eating less than 5 servings of fruit and vegetables per day. 31% didn't take part in any type of moderate physical activity. 48% were not taking physical education at school. And so now going to be looking at some alternatives to risk-taking. Now in life, you can avoid taking some risk. That's just a part of life. Even if you could, it would be a boring life. Because there are some things that, we kind of have to risk doing. Like, just getting in a car to go wherever we need to go. Going to college. Going to school to learn. That's a bit of a risk, but, we need to learn. Educators concerned about unhealthy risk-taking, however, have talked up the idea of healthy risk-taking as an alternative. In her book, The Romance of Risk, Why Teenagers Do the Things They Do, adolescent psychotherapist Lynn Punton suggests alternatives that might interest kids who are taking some dangerous risk. For example, kids involved in bullying or gang violence might want to take on the emotional risk of seeking out new friends or moving to a different school. Those behaviors probably take a lot more courage than ganging up on a small kid. As for alcohol and drug abusing teens, the book suggests that they look into the extreme physical and emotional thrills of whitewater rafting or rock climbing and, some other vigorous sports like maybe cross-country jogging, something I enjoy. The key is to redefine risk as challenge. What challenge do you meet? The writer asks, when you guzzle down 5 or 6 beers and jump behind the steering wheel, the risk killing yourself, killing other people. And many schools around the United States and Canada have begun alternatives to risk-taking programs built around after-school recreational, educational, and community service programs. Other schools have used that term as the title of class units that teach kids how to resist friends or classmates who try to pressure them into taking risks they do not want to take. Whichever alternatives they offer, these schools recognize that the old slogan, just say no, I know that's not enough to convince some kids. Never has and probably never will. And just be smart. Taking risk is a part of life, as we said. Taking harmful risk, though, when sensible alternatives are available, is a part of life that smart people avoid, teenagers or grown people. And so thank you so much for being here with our lecture today. The next lecture going to be might be a bit longer. We're going to be looking at recovering, I believe, here. Yep, recovery. Going to be looking at recovering from alcohol. So you come back and be with us the next lecture. Thanks for being with us in this one. And that's great to have everybody here. Our email address is there. Can help you in any way. Just let us know. Until we see you again, till the day break and the shadows flee away, I am Dr. Coop, and I love you, and I appreciate you.